My dear friends, before we start, I asked you all to press a like and leave your comment. This will help a lot to promote this video and to release news stories as soon as possible. It's not hard for you, but it's a pleasure for me. Thank you. I never gave much thought to the homeless. I saw them as shadows drifting through the city, carrying their burdens in tattered bags, faces etched with sorrow. But then there was Tony. He changed everything I thought I knew about those living in the margins of society. It all started after Vera, the girl I thought I would marry, cheated on me. 3 years of my life crumbled, leaving me with nothing but bitterness and a heart heavy with despair. One evening, drowning my sorrows in a bottle of cheap beer, I sat on the sidewalk outside my apartment, smoke curling up into the night air. That's when I met Tony, an upbeat man despite his circumstances, with a surprisingly infectious laugh that cut through my gloom. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, plopping down beside me, as if we were old friends. I offered him a cigarette, and our conversations bloomed from there. Tony was a former teacher, a man of wisdom and stories. He had lost everything, but held on to his spirit with a fierce determination. Our friendship grew. We met often, sharing cigarettes and our thoughts on life. I found myself laughing more, forgetting my heartache for those brief moments. But on that particular night, something felt off about Tony. His face was pale, and he seemed distant, as if he was battling an unseen foe. "Joel," he said, his voice shaking, "there's something you need to know." "What is it?" I leaned in, curiosity piqued. "There's a door in the basement of the old mill apartments. It's always been there, locked tight, but we've heard strange things coming from it. Last night, one of the guys, one-eyed, had this dream. The door was creaking open, and darkness poured out like a fog. He said something pulled him in." I chuckled nervously. "That sounds like a horror movie plot, Tony. Did he really think it was real?" His eyes darkened. "He didn't think so after last night. The door started scratching, Joel. Scratching like something was trying to get out. Then it opened." A shiver ran down my spine. "What happened next?" "The darkness," he continued, his voice barely a whisper. "It came out and wrapped around us. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And then one-eyed was gone." "Gone? Like he just disappeared?" "Yes," Tony exclaimed, his hands trembling. "And he hasn't been to Joel since. He's changed. He just sits there, staring at the door with empty eyes. He doesn't eat, doesn't speak, nothing." I shook my head in disbelief, trying to dismiss the eerie weight of his words. "You can't be serious. It sounds like a bad trip." But Tony's expression was grave, and I couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread in my gut. "Please, Joel, just stay away from that basement. Whatever is happening there." As days passed, the shadows deepened around the old mill apartments. I couldn't shake Tony's warning from my mind. My dreams became restless. The image of a door wrapped in fog haunted me, pulling at my consciousness like an insistent whisper. One night, I decided to visit Tony. As I approached the basement door, a chill wrapped around me. The air felt thick, suffocating, and I hesitated, heart pounding in my chest. But I had to know the truth. "Hey, Tony, are you there?" I called out as I reached the door, my voice echoing into the darkness. A moment of silence followed, and then I heard it, a soft scratching like fingernails on wood. My breath caught in my throat. "Tony, is that you?" The door creaked open slightly, revealing a sliver of darkness. I took a step back, fear coursing through me. "What's going on in there?" The scratching intensified, and suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was one-eyed, his face gaunt, eyes hollow, as if life had drained from him completely. "Joel," he rasped, his voice a chilling echo of its former self. "Help me!" I stumbled back, shock freezing me in place. "What happened to you?" He extended a hand, trembling as he pointed towards the door. "It wants us. It wants to take you too. You have to leave." Panic surged through me as I turned to run. But before I could, the door swung wide open, darkness spilling out like a living entity. It curled around me, cold and suffocating. I felt it clawing in my mind, whispering secrets of despair and dread. "Get out!" I screamed, struggling against the force. I could see Tony in the distance, his face twisted in horror. "Tony, help me!" But he was frozen, trapped in the pull of the shadows. I felt the darkness wrap around me, and I stumbled, falling to the ground. The last thing I saw was One-Eye's desperate expression as the shadows consumed me. I woke up in my apartment, heart racing, drenched in sweat. Had it all been a nightmare? The memory of that door and the chilling darkness clung to me like a shadow. Days turned into weeks, and I kept expecting to see Tony. I missed our conversations, the laughter that felt like a balm to my heart. But every time I ventured near the old mill apartments, an unsettling sense of dread pulled me back. Finally, one evening I saw Tony on the street. I rushed towards him, relief flooding my chest. "Tony, thank God you're okay." He turned slowly, eyes vacant, as if he were gazing through me rather than at me. "Joel, are you all right? I've been worried sick." He smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm not the Joel anymore. I can feel it in my bones. The door, it calls to me." "What do you mean? We can leave this place behind. You don't have to go back." His gaze fell to the ground, and he whispered, "But what if it's already too late?" A chill crept through my veins, and I could no longer deny the truth. The darkness that had consumed One-Eye had reached for Tony, and I feared it might be seeking me as well. "Stay with me," I urged, desperation rising in my chest. "We'll figure this out together." He shook his head slowly, fear etched across his features. "I can't. It knows I'm here. It knows everything." Suddenly, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and swirling the air around us. A low, haunting sound echoed through the street. A whisper, calling, beckoning us towards the basement. I felt the ground shift beneath me and panic surged. "Rot!" I shouted, grabbing Tony's arm, and we sprinted down the street, the darkness clawing at our heels. We didn't stop until we reached the park, breathless and shaken. "What was that?" Tony gasped, leaning against a tree, his face pale. "It was the door," I replied, my voice trembling. "Whatever is in that basement, it's real. It wants us." Tony stared into the distance, eyes filled with a haunting mix of fear and resignation. "We can't escape it. It's already in our minds." I took a deep breath, determination flaring within me. We had to find a way to confront it. As we devised a plan, the shadows in the park felt alive, swirling around us like dark thoughts. But I couldn't let fear consume me. We had to face the Shadow Keeper, the entity that thrived on despair and longing, before it swallowed us whole. That night, armed with flashlights and courage, we returned to the old mill apartments. The air was thick with foreboding as we descended into the basement. The door loomed before us, closed and ominous, but I could hear it whispering, promising what it had taken. "Tony, we need to stick together," I said, my voice steady despite the tremors in my hands. He nodded, and we stepped closer. I reached for the handle, the cold metal sending chills through my fingers. With a deep breath, I turned it. The door creaked open, and darkness poured out like smoke, curling around our ankles and whispering our names. "Come inside," it beckoned, silky and sweet, like a lover's promise. "No," I declared, my voice ringing out against the shadows. "We're not afraid of you." But the darkness thickened, swallowing the light, and I felt its cold breath against my skin. "You will be," it hissed, and suddenly I was falling. I landed on the cold ground, a wave of despair washing over me. The shadows danced around us, taunting and teasing. "What do you want from us?" I yelled, my voice echoing in the emptiness. "Your pain," a voice whispered, slithering through the air. "Your sorrow will feed us." Tony cried. We refused to give in. In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited within me. I thought of our friendship, the laughter we shared, the moments that illuminated our darkest days. "You don't own us," I shouted, defiance rising in my chest. We choose to live. The shadows recoiled, shrieking as if our light burned them. You cannot escape your fate, they screamed, their voices blending into a cacophony of despair. But we stood firm, holding on to each other, refusing to be swallowed by the darkness. We will not give in, I shouted again, my voice ringing with strength. And then, as if our courage pierced the veil of despair, a blinding light erupted from within us. It swept through the shadows, illuminating the basement in a dazzling glow. I could feel the darkness writhing, clawing at the edges of our light. Together, Joel, Tony shouted, and we focused our thoughts, channeling every ounce of hope and strength into a single, powerful beam. With a final, thunderous roar, the shadows shrieked and disintegrated, leaving nothing but a lingering echo. The basement fell silent, and as the light faded, we found ourselves standing in the cold, empty space, free of the darkness that had once threatened to consume us. Tony and I exchanged glances, relief washing over us. We did it. I breathed, heart racing. But as I looked into his eyes, I could see the weight of the shadows still lingering. You okay? I asked, concern creasing my brow. He nodded, though his expression remained clouded. I'll be okay. We fought it, and that's what matters. I smiled, my heart lightening. You're stronger than you realize, Tony. We'll keep fighting together. As we climbed out of the basement, I felt the dawn breaking on the horizon, casting warm light over the old building. The shadows may always be lurking, but we had discovered a power within ourselves that would shine through the darkest of nights. As we emerged from the old mill apartments, the first rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. It felt like a miracle, a stark contrast to the darkness we had just escaped. But I knew this was only the beginning. Where do we go from here? Tony asked, his voice still shaky, but determination flickered in his eyes. First, we need to check on One-Eyed, I replied, the name sending a shiver down my spine. He was still trapped in that darkness, and we can't leave him like that. Tony nodded, and we made our way to the park where we usually met. The air felt different now, charged with a sense of urgency. Each step echoed our resolve as we approached the spot where One-Eyed sat, staring into the distance. Hey, One-Eyed, I called out, trying to infuse my voice with a sense of hope. He turned slowly, eyes vacant and haunted. Joel, Tony, he mumbled, his voice barely a whisper. Are you okay? Tony asked, kneeling beside him, concern etched on his face. One-Eyed blinked, the shadows of despair still clinging to him. It's like I'm not all here. I can't feel anything. Listen, I urged, kneeling on his other side. We faced the Shadow Keeper. It was dark, but we fought back and we won. We can help you too. A flicker of recognition passed through One-Eye's eyes. You fought it? Yes, I said, my heart racing with urgency. You can fight it too, but you have to believe in yourself. You're not alone in this. His expression shifted, a mixture of doubt and longing. But the darkness, it's so strong. It's hard to remember what it feels like to be free. Tony squeezed One-Eye's shoulder. We're here for you. We'll fight it together, just like we did before. With each word, I felt the atmosphere shift, like the dawn pushing against the night. One-Eye took a deep breath, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of life return to his eyes. Okay, he said, voice stronger now. I'll try. The three of us huddled together, forming a circle of support. Think of something that brings you joy, I instructed, my own heart racing with hope. Something that makes you feel alive. As we closed our eyes, I thought of the laughter Tony and I had shared. I remembered the warmth of the sun on my skin, the smell of fresh coffee in the morning, the feeling of accomplishment when I created something new. Picture it, I whispered, my voice steady. Hold on to it tightly. Can you feel it? Tony asked, his voice calm. I nodded, feeling a warm glow spreading through me. It was the warmth of friendship, of hope, and resilience. I opened my eyes and saw One-Eye's face, the shadows beginning to recede as light took hold. "I can feel it," he said, a smile breaking through the darkness. It's beautiful." With newfound strength, we began to chant, calling upon our shared memories of light and laughter. The shadows around One-Eyed quivered, hesitant to release their hold. But we pushed against them, our voices rising in unity. "We won't let you take him," I shouted, the words pouring out of me like a flood. "You have no power here." And with that declaration, the darkness recoiled, writhing like a wounded creature. The grip it had on One-Eyed shattered, leaving him gasping, free for the first time in weeks. "Joel, Tony, thank you," he exclaimed, tears of relief streaming down his face. We embraced, laughter spilling into the morning air, a symphony of triumph over despair. As we stood together, the three of us, we realized we were not just fighting for ourselves. We were creating a sanctuary for others, a safe space for those who wandered too close to the shadows. "We need to tell others about what we faced," Tony said, his voice firm with conviction. "We can't let the darkness win. We have to help them fight." "Absolutely," I agreed. "If we could overcome it, others can too. We'll be their light." With our hearts set on this new mission, we decided to organize a gathering in the park. We would invite anyone who felt lost, anyone battling their own shadows, and we would share our stories. Over the next few days, we spread the word, reaching out to those we knew had struggled. Flyers covered the local community boards, and we talked to friends and neighbors, urging them to join us. On the day of the gathering, the park buzzed with nervous energy. I looked around at the faces, some hopeful, others apprehensive. Tony stood beside me, his eyes shining with determination. "Are you ready?" he asked, and I nodded, heart pounding. As we gathered everyone in a circle, I felt the weight of the moment. "Thank you all for coming," I began, voice steady. "We're here because we know that darkness can feel overwhelming, but you're not alone. We've faced it, and we can help each other find our way back to the light." Tony took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I want to share my story," he said, voice strong. "I was once lost like many of you, but I found friendship in the most unexpected place. It was that bond that helped me see the light again." One-Eye chimed in, sharing his own harrowing tale of despair and his fight against the Shadow Keeper. The group listened intently, the energy shifting as each story unfolded. People began to share their own experiences, and with every story told, I felt the weight of despair lift. We were forging a connection, a community built on understanding and resilience. As night fell, we gathered around a small fire, its flickering flames casting warm light in the darkness. The air was filled with laughter, and it felt as if we were weaving a tapestry of hope and camaraderie. "Together, we are stronger," I said, looking at the faces around me. "Let's remember that no matter how dark it gets, we always have the power to push back." And so, we formed a pact. We would meet every week, supporting each other, sharing stories, laughter, and sometimes tears. It became a ritual, a way to strengthen our bonds and push back against the shadows that lingered on the fringes of our lives. As the weeks turned into months, I watched as each person began to shine brighter. Tony became a pillar of strength, and One-Eye blossomed into a voice of encouragement for others. Yet, as we grew stronger, I couldn't shake the feeling that the Shadow Keeper was still lurking, waiting for a moment of weakness. I remained vigilant, determined to protect my newfound friends and their light. One evening, as we wrapped up our gathering, Tony pulled me aside. "Joel, I've been thinking." "About what?" I asked, concern creeping in. "I think we should confront the door again. We've gained strength, and I believe we can finish what we started. We can banish the Shadow Keeper for good." A chill ran down my spine, but deep inside, a flicker of bravery ignited. "You're right. If we're going to do this, we need everyone's support. We can't face it alone." That night, we shared our plan with the group, and no fear flickered in their eyes. Determination burned brighter. We could do this together, I urged. We're stronger now, and we know what we're fighting for. As the moon hung high in the sky, casting silver beams over the old mill apartments, we gathered at the door once more, the air heavy with anticipation. Remember, I said, glancing around at my friends, we're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for everyone who's ever been lost in the darkness. With our hearts intertwined, we reached for the door handle, ready to face whatever lay beyond. As I pushed it open, the familiar darkness coiled around us. But this time we stood united, our resolve shining bright. We are like, we shouted, our voices echoing through the shadows. The darkness roared, but we held our ground, chanting our mantra of defiance. We are not afraid. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from within us, illuminating the basement and causing the shadows to writhe and recoil. The Shadow Keeper emerged, a grotesque figure with piercing eyes, its form twisting and contorting like smoke. "You think you can defeat me?" it hissed, voice dripping with malice. "I thrive on despair." But we stood firm, our hearts pulsing with the light of friendship and hope. "You are nothing," I shouted, my voice cutting through the darkness. "We will not let you take us." With each word, our collective strength grew, and the light expanded, pushing back the shadows. The Shadow Keeper writhed in agony, its form disintegrating into tendrils of darkness. "This is not over," it screeched, its voice fading as it was consumed by the light. We stood together, hands clasped, breathing heavily, but victorious. The shadows dissolved into nothingness, leaving only a sense of peace in their wake. As the light settled, I looked around at my friends, their faces filled with disbelief and triumph. "We did it," I breathed, a smile breaking across my face. Tony grinned, clapping one-eyed on the back. "We really did." But even as we celebrated, I couldn't help but feel a lingering sense of caution. I knew darkness would always exist, lurking just out of sight, waiting for an opportunity. "Let's remember what we learned," I said, looking at my friends. "We must continue to support each other. The shadows may return, but together we can face them." And so, we forged a new pact that night, not just to fight against the darkness, but to live in the light, embracing each moment and supporting each other through the challenges ahead. The journey wasn't over, but we were ready to face whatever lay ahead, together. In the months that followed, the old mill apartments transformed from a haunted relic of despair to a vibrant hub of laughter and light. We held community events, art classes, and open mic nights, fostering creativity and connection. Tony found his passion for music, often playing guitar around the fire, while One Eye wrote poetry that resonated with many. As for me, I took up painting, each stroke reflecting the beauty of our shared experiences. And though we knew the shadows could return, we had each other, and that made all the difference. With every sunset, we celebrated our triumphs, knowing that together, we had the power to banish darkness and embrace the light.